Emotional appeals are a central part of politics in America, and they have been implemented for quite some time. If we remember the videos that we were shown in class um, of Reagan's campaign, the videos that sparked a lot of hope in the media, and then there was others by other presidential candidates that were supposed to elicit fear. Those have actually been shown to be very effective and doing different things based on the emotions they're going forward. The time that they're putting these ads out in can be very efficient in drawing in crowds and making them feel a certain type of way in order to get them to the polls and to vote and different things. So, in the midst of a fiery United States presidential race, when one of the most powerful nations in the world is deciding on who to put into power, one would hope that what impacts voters' political behavior most is the candidate's support for certain policy and solid plans for the future. That's what you hope for. Um, that may be true for the most part, but also there's something else that has been shown to have a great impact, and that is emotions. In class, we learned that emotions are thought to be automatic and nearly impossible to disentangle from cognition, which may explain why they have such an impact on how we behave politically. Um, you know, you can remember a time when you've been so worked up you can't think of anything else besides what is bothering you emotionally. You can't think logically. You can't decide to do other things. It's just you're stuck on that one topic, and that is what's being done in with emotions as well in politics. Despite there being what seems to be an infinite number of emotions that we may experience in our lifetime, they may be intermingling, mixing, that kind of thing. There are actually only 8 basic emotions that are agreed on to be universal or innate to humankind. So no matter where you live, no matter what culture you grew up in, you can experience these emotions in their fullest. And those are anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, surprise, shame, and emotion. So, in the process of studying these emotions in the political landscape, it has been found that some emotions, such as anxiety and enthusiasm, are linked to cheap political participation requiring little effort, such as wearing a button and speaking to others about politics. And then other emotions, such as anger, are linked to more serious political participation, such as voting, protesting, and donating money to a campaign. As we learned in class, there are 3 emotions that have been studied at greater length due to their increased appearance in American campaign messaging. And those are the 3 that I just mentioned. They are anger, anxiety, and enthusiasm. And according to Searles and Ridout, these 3 emotions are not inflicted by accident, but rather purposefully due to their ability to facilitate or inhibit goals and behaviors. Um, there's always an agenda behind a political ad or a campaign, whether it could be many different things, but these politicians and other people making these ads are not doing it on accident. It's been shown. So the first of the 3 heavily studied emotions in politics is anger, which is described as a response to an object that is inhibiting or blocking one's goal. Um, this emotion has a tendency to interfere with cognition and generally drives one's thoughts toward punishment and a more stringent policy. Inducing anger increases the likelihood of one blaming one person or another rather than situational circumstances, which may have something to do with why Donald Trump's always playing the blame game, blaming everything on the fake news or something that another politician might have said, um, rather than something he may have done as president. Um, it has also been found to induce a positive mindset toward the future, explaining why inducing anger frequently occurs in political rhetoric following a terroristic attack or other disasters. Um, it increases self-efficacy, driving individuals to participate in a campaign and voting, kind of like what I said before. And it is found to trigger partisanship, leading individuals to dig in and rely on political habits rather than to search for more information or compromise. The second of the heavily studied emotions in politics are fear or anxiety, which is described as responding to threat and novelty. It has been found as reported in Marcus and McEwen's article, to stimulate attention toward a campaign and political learning and discourage reliance on habitual voting cues. It's kind of the opposite of anger previously. It serves an adaptive purpose. It increases awareness and forces us to keep our eyes out for threats, which is very important in politics as our livelihood and basically the outcome of the next 4 years in a presidential election is in the hands of those that rule the government. Research suggests that anxious individuals pay more attention to campaign information and pending threats. We also discussed in class that politicians can play on an audience's anxiety or fears to draw them in. So, for example, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're going through right now, perfect timing in the 2020 election season, when most Americans are anxious about their safety and the fate of the economy, it is for a good reason why a lot of these politicians are developing plans that hit on many of the fears and concerns that the American citizens are having, just calming their fears and making them feel safe with them. That's what's going to draw them in to vote for this candidate. This makes sense as it has been established that anxiety leads individuals to place more trust in political officials. In cases such as a presidential race, anxiety may lead to more attention being distributed to the news, which in most cases is a good thing. It's a thing with celebrities. The more that their name is out there, whether it's bad or good, it draws people in searching their name on the internet, gets people to view them, and that kind of thing. So in politics, increasing anxiety gets more of these news anchors and television shows, news shows to mention your name, talk about your character, your policy, whatever. It's just really drawing in attention, which usually is a good thing, unless you do something terrible. But the third of the three emotions that are highly studied in politics is hope and enthusiasm. And it is found to influence a candidate's preferences and stimulate interest or involvement in the campaign, according to the article that we read about anxiety and enthusiasm. In other words, feeling confident in the possibility of positive change by a candidate is likely to result in said person supporting that candidate. Feelings of hope or enthusiasm in a candidate is generally paired with feelings of fear or anxiety in an out-party candidate. An individual's sense of enthusiasm has also been shown to increase their partisan habits, such as always voting with the same party. If you've always voted Democrat, you continue to vote Democrat, and decrease their attention to the environment of the campaign, possibly due to their attention being on the candidate they're enthused about. Enthusiasm works and influence attitudes towards both policies and politics. Policies and politicians, I apologize. And then in their article about the use and influences of emotions in politics, Searles and Ridout suggest that while sparking enthusiasm about one's campaign is never a bad thing, it can be of most benefit in the early stages of a campaign. So around the months of June and July, candidates are attempting to solidify their image generally and gain a solid footing as far as followers. So exciting these possible voters to support, donate, and getting involved into their campaign can be very effective. And then the emotive study that we discussed in class with the pretty colorful graph of Trump's support in the media and Hillary Clinton's support is something that we talked about in class. So I looked that up and read about that a little bit more. And this study was extremely successful and was actually more successful than a lot of the other news anchors and these companies that basically do this for a job, predicting the outcomes of elections. This new study on emotions and how those are being perceived in the media, being talked about, actually did a better job of predicting the correct candidate, Donald Trump. Everyone else was predicting that Hillary Clinton was going to win by a landslide based on early polls and that kind of thing, but it actually did not pan out to be true. Other poll predictors broadcast results of a single snapshot in time, while Emotive was designed to extract real-time data from thousands of tweets per second in the weeks preceding the 2016 election, which paints a better picture of who voters are going to vote for, apparently, because it was accurate. The system operates by measuring emotional fluctuation in tweets about the two candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So, say people on Twitter are tweeting a bunch of things about being enthused, and then all of a sudden they switch over to being fearful, and they don't talk about being enthused again. They're kind of like showing uncertainty about the politician. So that is what really went into the emotive studies calculation of support and success possibility, basically. Um, Increased fluctuation in emotion toward a presidential candidate, which was operationalized as uncertainty, led to fewer votes within the emotive model. So if you look at Donald Trump's graph, you can see that his color bands are thicker and more consistent. So they were more certain about their support for Donald Trump and seemed to stick to it. And then in Hillary Clinton's, there's a lot of jumping around. The bands go from thick to thin and thick to thin, so they're kind of like really uncertain and just basically uncertain about their support for Hillary Clinton. And looking at the graphs produced in the emotive study at the bottom of my handout, a wider band of color, like I said, means there was a greater emotional outpour toward the candidate in that particular emotion. And with that being said, Donald Trump was predicted to win the election based on voter certainty. Hillary Clinton's graphs show greater dips and spikes, meaning that she would likely receive fewer votes, which is exactly what happened.